We live in a day where sequels are falling from the sky and often feel like franchise obligations, like chores, rather than something exciting. Any movie genre, even horror, can be at risk for this. Today, I wanted to talk about the greatest horror sequel, what it could teach us about continuing the story, and what movies didn't make the cut. So I'm doing separate videos on horror prequels, sequels, and remakes, and by far, sequels are the most overdone. You need 2 pairs of hands to count all the Friday the 13th movies. There are 9 Hellraiser sequels, 6 Elm Street sequels, and 3 more sequels to Jaws than were needed. Yeah, nice job jumping the shark by making it roar, you dipshits. And at the risk of alienating some of my audience, a lot of these movies, without nostalgia goggles, are bad. Still, there are plenty of good ones. Think of the creative cheese of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. 28 Weeks Later pales in comparison to 28 Days, but several great sequences jump to mind. The Conjuring 2 has its moments. Final Destination 2 and 3 improve upon the Rube Goldberg concepts from the first film. And Smile 2, which I don't think was that great, sorry, maybe just don't repeat the same gag over and over, was at least better than the first by basically every aspect. I spent a long time trying to find a horror sequel better than the one I picked, but I just don't think it exists. Both as a sequel and as a film overall, Aliens wins. First round, knockout. Saying that, I do see some people saying that its horror status is borderline, given its stylistic departure from the first movie. So if those people want like a backup, let's go with, Exorcist 3. It's got great dialogue, powerful performances given to both heroes and villains alike, an infamous jump scare, and the most upsetting Spider-Man since Andrew Garfield glued his feet to a deck and pretended to skateboard. Like a good sequel, it uses the Exorcist concept as a launchpad, serving as a detective thriller as much as a horror drama. Just an all-around good horror sequel that I highly recommend.
I must admit it makes me chuckle every time. Life is fun.
It's a wonderful life, in fact. For some.
As for Aliens, it's not just fantastic for the genre, but one of the finest sequels ever made. Instead of just going through the motions, I wanted to talk about a few things that I don't see a lot of people mention about this movie, and one of them is the beautifully tender and subtle romance between the protagonist Ellen Ripley and Corporal Hicks. From just a few glances early on, we understand that these two are attracted to each other, but it's never overdone. No violins in the background or masturbatory zooms. We don't leave the plot and its danger ever, and that stays consistent through this courtship. They formulate a plan, setting up defenses and multiple escape routes, and in a moment both adorable and cool, they agree to nuke the alien hive from orbit.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Prep for dust off. We're gonna need immediate evac.
Roger. On our way.
Say we take off, nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Their jobs come first. The safety of everyone is paramount, and since they both understand this, the romantic moments pop up here and there in the most natural way. The short sequence where Hicks trains her with the rifle is a classic, and for good reason. Physical intimacy, the adherence to the danger at hand, and showcasing his experience and her tenacity. It's perfect. However, I want to shout out this little exchange with the tracking device.
What's it for?
It's a locator. Then I can find you anywhere in the complex. On this. It's just a precaution.
Thanks.
Doesn't mean we're engaged or anything. Alright, what's next?
I mean, that's just cute. It's nice to see a romantic bond between two adults that feels like it was written by adults. And what I love most about it is that while it enhances the characters and sense of camaraderie, it never takes away from the tension. It simply lives alongside it. Another aspect I don't think gets enough praise is the elevator sequence. Sure, everyone knows that one shot, but the sequence as a whole is a sublime summation of Ripley's character arc from reluctant, traumatized advisor to badass hero. And yet again, the tension doesn't leave and her fear doesn't dissipate. Instead of letting her hair down as the music soars, she moves the hair out of her eyes as she's mopped up with grime and sweat. She's terrified and exhausted, but pushes through, preparing herself both mentally and physically. And the only words we hear is from the countdown sequence. I did an entire video about this scene a long way back, so check that out if you want a full breakdown, but I wanted to sing its praises again, but, with a better microphone.
You now have 14 minutes to reach minimum safe distance.
What's fun about the Alien franchise is that the different directors have a similar effect as the different actors for James Bond. They come in and bring their own unique style while trying to retain the core vibe of the franchise. Ridley Scott, at least with the first Alien, went with a claustrophobic, almost haunted house feel. David Fincher's Alien 3 is all metalwork, misery, and studio interference. Alien Resurrection is goofy. Prometheus is glossy and philosophical. Covenant is goofy, but less intentionally.
Watch me. I'll do the fingering.
Alien Romulus is more vibrant in its colors and shitty in its fan service. AVP and AVPR are movies. With Aliens, James Cameron brought his trademark action focus. Gunfire rages from the first attack to the finale. There's explosions, one-liners, vehicles, and space marines. And this isn't to sell the action short. One could argue that Aliens actually subverts the action genre by having the typical gung-ho characters stroll in like Rambo, only to get decimated and need the more rational minds to take the reins. And if we go a step deeper, the entire story can be seen as an allegory for America's involvement in the Vietnam War. These are soldiers thrust into an unfamiliar and foreign environment, surrounded by enemies they can't see, while greedy bureaucrats and incompetent officers twiddle their thumbs. But sure, there is still a lot of action. You may think, so how is this horror again? And for me, the film still boasts enough horror trappings to keep it in that genre. The facehugger scene will make you sweat if not panic, and taps into that fear of not something large that will maul and eat you, but of something small, quick, and invasive. A woman stuck in a wall and crying out for euthanasia is horrifying. The scene where the xenomorphs are in the ceiling is a textbook buildup of horror suspense. In fact, much of the technology of this future actually supplies the horror experience. Think of the aliens creeping closer on the motion trackers, or the ammo quickly running out on the gun turrets, showing us just how many creatures are hunting them.
5 meters, man. 4. What the hell? Oh my god.
To summarize, Aliens isn't just on this list because it's great, for the reasons both obvious and less spoken about. No, it's also on this list because it works beautifully as a follow-up. The film expands upon concepts rather than wallow in them. A once stationary facehugger now gets its own scene to shine. Ripley gets much more depth. And not just through her character arc I mentioned earlier, but her maternal instincts, and how even those help with the mission at hand. Hell, the ending is basically a mother beating the shit out of another mother trying to steal her baby.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Weyland Yutani, the company financing these expeditions, is given a face and a boardroom. The android is now a heroic figure, and Ripley even has another arc regarding her prejudice against him. There's just so much more being explored and played with, and somehow it doesn't come across like it has too many plates in the air. This is because it ties everything, the characters, their arcs and flirtations, their strengths and failures, back to the crisis, the horror in the center. For all those reasons and probably more, it is the best horror sequel ever made. So far. So, do you agree? What is your favorite horror sequel? Big shout out to my Patreon supporters, link to that below if you want some fun rewards. If you want more horror content, check out the playlists on my channel, I got lots of stuff. Subscribe, share, all the support means a lot, and as always, thanks for watching.